My name is Lily. I am 40 years old. 10 years ago, I was living the life I always wanted. I had a loving husband, David, and 2 beautiful children. I was happy. My life felt complete. I met David when we were in college. We got along really well right away. He was kind, funny, and made me feel special. We dated for a year before we decided to get married. It felt like everything was going perfectly. We moved into our first house, started a family, and built our life together. David was the man I always dreamed of. He worked hard, took care of our children, and made me feel safe. Our life seemed perfect. We had some problems like any other couple, but nothing we couldn't fix. I trusted him completely. I trusted our love. Looking back, our life felt like a fairy tale. We had everything I wanted. I thought we would grow old together, watching our children start their own families. But I didn't know then that the life I thought we had would change in a way I could never imagine. Then one day, everything changed. Slowly at first, then all at once. At first, I didn't notice the small changes. I thought it was just stress, or maybe the routine of life was getting to us. But slowly, things started to change. David started coming home later, more often. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. He worked long hours, and I understood that. But then, it became a pattern. He would leave for work in the morning and sometimes wouldn't come home until after the kids were already asleep. When he did come home, he seemed distant. He no longer greeted me with a smile or a kiss. I told myself it was just a face. He was busy with work, and maybe he needed space. But as the weeks went by, the distance between us grew. When we talked, it was brief. His responses were short, and he seemed distracted. I remember one night asking him how his day was. He didn't even look up from his phone. "Fine," he said with a flat voice. That was it. I felt uneasy, but I pushed the feeling away. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Things would get better. They had to. Then, one evening, I found myself waiting for him to come home. I made his favorite dinner, set the table, and waited. He was an hour late. No call, no text, just silence. I felt a cold panic start to rise in me. What's happening? I asked myself. Something didn't feel right, but I couldn't figure out what it was. That night, everything started like any other. David was late again. I had just finished putting the kids to bed, and I was sitting alone at the kitchen table. My mind was racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. Then his phone buzzed across the table. It wasn't unusual for him to get a message, but tonight, something felt different. I glanced at it, but quickly looked away. "Don't be paranoid, Lily," I told myself. "It's just a message." But then it buzzed again and again. I couldn't stop myself. I picked up his phone to see what was going on. I told myself it was just curiosity, nothing more. I unlocked it, and there it was, a message from a name I didn't recognize. The message said, "I miss you. Can't wait to see you again. I will be thinking of you tonight." My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the screen, the words blurring in front of my eyes. "I miss you." Those words weren't meant for me. I felt my hands shake as I opened the conversation. The messages were romantic, filled with longing and affection. She called him my love and my everything. I felt cold all over. I couldn't believe it. He had been seeing someone else, and not just anyone. Someone he had been hiding from me. I thought back to all the small signs I had ignored. The late nights, the distance, the secretive behavior. When David finally came home, I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at him, holding the phone. His face fell when he saw the look in my eyes. I didn't need to ask. I already knew. I didn't know what to say. I was frozen, holding his phone in my hands, looking at the messages that had broken everything. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. David didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, his face pale. His eyes avoided mine, and I could feel the weight of his guilt in the silence. Finally, he spoke. "Lily, I never meant for it to happen. I am so sorry. I don't know what came over me. It was a mistake. Please forgive me." A mistake? That's what he called it. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him everything I was feeling in that moment. Anger, confusion, betrayal. But the words wouldn't come out. Instead, all I could say was, "How long?" David hesitated before answering, his eyes filled with tears. "It started a few months ago. I didn't want to hurt you. A few months ago." So, all this time, when I thought everything was fine, he had been seeing someone else. He had been lying to me. I felt like my heart was breaking into pieces. I stood up, feeling the anger rise inside me. "You promised me, David. You promised we would always be honest with each other. And now I find this." "I am sorry," he repeated, stepping closer. "Please, Lily, I can't live without you. I will do whatever it takes to make it right." I shook my head. "You broke me. You broke everything we had." I couldn't look at him anymore. I needed space. I needed to think. Without saying another word, I turned and walked out of the room. I grabbed my purse and left the house. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay. I drove to my parents' house that night. It wasn't far, but it felt like miles. I needed to be away from him, away from the pain. Days turned into weeks. David didn't stop calling. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Each time I thought about what he had done, my heart broke all over again. The trust we had shared was gone, and I didn't know if it could ever be rebuilt. Then, one evening, David showed up at my parents' house. He looked different. There was sadness in his eyes, a heaviness in his face that I hadn't seen before. He wasn't the man I knew anymore. "Please, Lily, can we talk?" he asked, his voice soft, filled with regret. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. I didn't want to open the door, but at the same time, I couldn't turn him away. "What do you want, David?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I know I have hurt you," he said, his eyes downcast. "I have made a terrible mistake, and I don't know how to fix it. But I love you, Lily. I love our family. And I am so sorry for what I have done." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to believe him. But after everything, could I? "I am not asking for your forgiveness right now," he continued, his voice full of longing. "But I will do whatever it takes to show you I can be the man you deserve." I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "I don't know if I can forgive you, David. I don't know if I can trust you again." The days after David's visit felt like a blur. I stayed at my parents' house, trying to keep busy, trying not to think about him. But no matter what I did, my mind kept drifting back to that conversation. I kept asking myself, can I really forgive him? Can I trust him again? David didn't give up. He kept coming by, leaving messages, and doing everything he could to show me that he was sorry. Every time I saw him, I felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to walk away and never look back, but another part of me still missed him. I missed the man I had married, the man who used to make me feel safe and loved. David started showing me that he was trying. He fixed things around the house, things that had always been his responsibility. He spent more time with the kids, and I could see that he was trying to be the father he had always been. But it wasn't enough. I wasn't ready to forgive him yet. One day, he sat down beside me. Without saying anything, he took my hand. I didn't pull away. I let him hold it. For the first time since everything happened, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel broken. I just felt confused. I am not asking for everything to be fixed in one day, he said quietly. I am asking for a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserve. It was a small step, but it felt like progress. I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I was starting to see that he was trying. Time passed, and David kept proving he was committed to changing. He kept showing up, not with big gestures, but with small, thoughtful actions. It wasn't easy. Every day felt like I was walking on a tightrope. I wanted to believe we could rebuild our life together. But the fear of being hurt again held me back. It wasn't just about trusting him. It was about trusting myself to make the right decision. One afternoon, I was sitting on the porch, watching the kids play in the yard. David was inside, making dinner. For a moment, everything felt normal, the way it used to be. I smiled as I thought about how far we'd come. I am not asking for everything to be perfect, David said softly, walking out to join me. I just want to be better for you. For us, I looked at him, feeling a quiet strength inside. Maybe it wasn't about forgetting the past. Maybe it was about choosing to move forward. I am not ready to forgive you completely, I said, my voice steady, but I am willing to try. We'll take it one day at a time. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I began to heal. Slowly, the anger and hurt faded, and what remained was something new, a quieter, more peaceful love. David kept proving he was committed, and I kept choosing to believe in him. I realized that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing to let go of the past and making room for healing. The road wasn't easy, and I still had doubts, but I learned one thing. Healing takes time, and love takes patience. Looking back at everything that has happened, it feels like I've been through a long, painful journey. The days I spent in doubt, betrayal, and heritage seemed endless. But now, when I sit back and look ahead, I realize that, no matter how difficult it was, I have learned to be stronger. I have learned to love myself and to reflect on what truly matters in life. David made mistakes, but I can't keep living in the past. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means accepting and letting go of the pain so I can move forward. I don't know what the future holds, but I understand that I have the right to choose my own path. I am no longer the woman who waits passively. I am a woman who stands up for herself, stronger and more determined, ready to decide my own fate. Whether we can heal together or not, I've learned that inner peace is what truly matters the most.